Welcome to another Tuesday Talk with Ruby Reese. Shortly, I'll be joined by a guest to speak about autism assistant dogs. As you know, with this format, always we're trying to keep things very informal and chatty. So we will be making generalizations throughout the chat that might not necessarily be relevant for you, your dog, or your family. So we're just going to hang on for a moment for Kira, who's going to be joining us from Autism Assistance Dogs Ireland for the topic. And I'm really looking forward to learning about this one. And I think Kira has also joined the chat. You should get a request to join now any second. Kira, how are you doing?
Hi, Gillian. Thanks for having me. Sorry, I had to restart Instagram to make sure I was available.
No, not at all. Thank you so much for being here. We know that technology, it's brilliant when it works, but when you need it to work most, it definitely gives up. So that's no problem at all. To get started off, would you do us the pleasure of introducing yourself?
I suppose my name is Kira. I work for Autism Assistance Dogs Ireland. I'm one of the autism dog instructors. So my role personally is dogs come into me at about a year old, maybe between a year and a half. And after all the fantastic work our volunteers have put into them as they are puppies, I carry it a little bit further. I basically make sure that they're trained to the standard set by Assistance Dogs International. So Assistance Dogs International are a global organisation. Mm-hmm. And because we are accredited with them, that means our dogs have public access rights, the same as a guide dog.
Okay.
So I train them up to that standard. And once I'm happy that they're doing well and they're going to make great assistance dogs, I look at our list. So we always have about 30 families on our list waiting for dogs.
Oh, wow.
And then I match the dogs to the family, like depending on lots of different factors. It can be how fast the family walk, how active the family are, what type of dog is going to suit them best. So then once I've matched the dog, I train them for a good number of months to make sure that they're working nicely as a partnership. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Oh, thank you so much. That's a brilliant introduction. I've also seen that Ivan from your team definitely just messaged in as well to say that he's come along to support, just by way of introduction. Very good, brilliant. And from my side, just as a way of introduction as well, for any of our viewers this evening that may not have seen me before, I'm Killian from Ruby Reese. We're a local Irish brand based in Ballincollig in Cork, and you can check out our website at ruby-reese.com after this call. And I don't want to go into too many other details now because I'm brimming over with questions now on autism assistance dogs. So maybe we'll take it right back to the beginning for people watching in, because I'm sure there's lots of people with various different levels of prior knowledge. So what even is an autism assistance dog?
So an autism assistance dog, a lot of people might think it's almost like a companion or an emotional support dog, but that's not actually the case. So obviously autism it's on a spectrum. Every child with autism is different. But a lot of children with autism don't perceive the dangers in the environment that they're in. So whether that's crossing the roads or running away from the people who are meant to keep them safe. So a lot of the families kind of suffer a lot of anxiety because they start to get isolated almost because they're too nervous to go outside. There's too many dangers. They turn their back, the child is gone. Or, they're not holding the hand, the child runs across the road in front of a truck. So a lot of families do experience that anxiety. So the purpose of an autism assistance dog is to keep that child safe and to reduce the anxiety for the parent. The parent is going to be the handler of the dog, not the child.
Okay, so we need to be thinking of this more like the armbands in the swimming pool as opposed to a cuddling
exactly. Exactly. Now, there are other benefits, but the primary purpose we train our dogs for is, we call it anchoring. So we train the dogs, they wear their jacket, they're actually attached with a belt to the child. And if the child does try and abscond, the dog is taught to anchor. So they hold their forepaws on the ground and they keep steady. And it gives the parent then a chance to bring that child back into the family group, or even with themselves. And then we also have to train the dogs to obviously be comfortable with all the behaviours that they might come across. Again, every child is different. We assess the families. We visit the families before they're matched with the dog, so that we know what to prepare the dog for. So I have Misha here. This is Misha. Hey, Misha.
Oh my God. How old is Misha?
Misha is 2 now. Yeah, just coming up to 2. So she's actually very mature, which is fantastic. And she's only just started her, we call it advanced training. So she's come in now to do her finishing training with me. And she's living with me at the moment, which is lovely, because in fairness, she's a lovely dog. But if you see her jacket, hey, say hello to everybody. Hi. Yeah, she's wagging her tail. Like, her jacket has our logo on it, which means that's her public access rights. And the child will be attached to this ring here on the back.
Okay.
And so that's what we guarantee our parents. When the families are accepted onto the list, we guarantee safety only. The benefits other than that, which do tend to happen, are the dog provides comfort in situations the child would be normally might find frustrating. It becomes like a constant companion. Because the parent's anxiety level drops, it tends to drop the child's anxiety too. We've had people who say sleeping habits have, improved, or, we call them meltdowns, when a child is overstimulated and they get frustrated, whether that's noise or crowds, that helps. So they're all benefits that we can't guarantee, but they do happen. The primary purpose of the Autism Assistance Dog is safety.
Absolutely. And that's, so they carry a huge burden, these dogs. I mean, they've got such a big job to do. Let's talk just briefly, is there a certain breed we work with, or multiple breeds we work with? How does that look?
Mostly, like for ourselves, we do have our own breeding program. And it's very scientific, but we have our own breeding program. The main breeds we work with are Labrador Retrievers and Golden Retrievers, and we normally mix the two.
Okay.
Basically, because both have different traits that work really well for us, and if you mix them, it works even better. The Golden Retrievers are extremely intelligent. They are, a breed as well that, like, members of the public love. So, they're approachable. And then the Labrador Retrievers are a bit more willing. The Golden Retrievers can be a little bit stubborn. They are too intelligent. If they want to do something, they're doing it. And if they don't want to do something, that's it. Whereas the Labradors are, what do you want me to do? Like, I want to do something. How can I make you happy? So by mixing the two, we really get like quite a balanced dog with the traits that we like the best. Yeah.
And I mean, it's setting everyone up for success. On this channel, we've covered everything from man trailing to, sled dog sports and things like that. So I think, there's a breed for everyone, and not every breed isn't going to suit everyone. I mean, our own stubborn little friend, she mightn't be the best example of a dog that will listen 100% of the time, for example, and that's totally okay, because we don't need her for this purpose.
Yeah.
And I suppose maybe let's talk about puppies for a second, because we have to talk about puppies now that we have the opportunity. I posted up a picture that I shared from your Instagram page, the Autism Dogs Ireland page. And when we're promised puppies, so like when does training begin in the life of a dog? I suppose is the good way to start.
It begins very, very early. So we know there's critical periods when it comes to socialising dogs. I reckon they only get probably a day or two before, and when I say training, it's not really training. What it is, it's socialization. So getting the puppies used to different smells, maybe different noises in the background. And this is all while they're still with their mum. Even touch, maybe that might come a week or two later, but even just giving very gentle touching, so that they're conditioned to being used to all these new, and our breeding supervisor has a very set socialization program day by day as the puppy. So literally, probably, I'd say they probably get 2 days before they go on to that program, but it's very gentle, very gentle. So if there is noise, if they are going to play noises in the background, it's at a really low volume. If they are going to touch them, it's all really gentle and all really relaxed. And then as they start getting older, obviously the ears start to hear, they start to open their eyes. You know, it's kind of escalated slowly over time. And the puppies are monitored for any signs of stress, so that it can be, you have to be constantly adapting. So if the puppy's showing signs of stress, you take it right back again, to the start. So that's basically, they start very early. Then at 8 weeks, they'll have been weaned off their mum, which mum is normally delighted by that stage, 8 weeks. And then they go into volunteer families. So our volunteer families then are tasked with socializing this puppy in every different type of environment you can constantly think, like whether it's train stations, shopping centres, they'll go to the doctor with them, they'll go everywhere. And we have 2 puppy raising supervisors. So one in Munster, primarily in Cork, and one in Dublin. And what they do then is they do every 3 to 4 weeks a visit with the families and teach them how to bring the puppy along. And if they're coming across any obstacles that they're unsure of, or if toilet training is probably a big one for most people who have puppies. But if their dog is showing any signs of fear or signs of stress or overexcitement, then our puppy raising supervisors give them all the training and the tips and tricks to be able to bring that back around. And they'll stay there until they're a 1-year-old, yeah.
Okay, so they go to foster families from you said week 8, was it?
Yeah,
week 8 to 10, kind of normal, I suppose, in a puppy's life, but then they go into a foster family that has specific, and do they get homework to do? It's obviously very structured in the kind of socialization that they have to do. So, what does maybe a normal week look like for a pup in training? Do you? I know you said you work with the 1+ age mostly, but do you know what kind of a normal week looks like from the earlier stage first?
I suppose it depends on the volunteer. Like, it could be a family with young children. It could be somebody who's working from home, or a couple working from home. The volunteers, we go and do an assessment before we give them a puppy anyway. So it can vary quite, but there are certain things that you would want, like walking nicely on the lead would be one thing. Now, these things all take time. It's not going to happen overnight, but walking nicely on the lead, walking nicely past dogs, not getting distracted by people. Again, toileting, these dogs have full public access rights. They can go to shopping centres, they can go everywhere. So they need to have really good, we don't want any dog to be toileting in a place they're not meant to. So, and a lot of normal puppy things as well, puppies, they've got sharp teeth and they teeth. And one of the ways puppies explore the world is with their mouths. So that's one thing, at the very early stages, you'd be trying to manage as much as possible. Sure. And there's loads of different methods for it, but I suppose it's just supporting the volunteers so that they feel empowered themselves, that they know they have the tools and they know they have the techniques, and that with a little patience, dog training is all about patience, they're able to overcome those obstacles. And that's why the puppies are monitored so often. So every 3 weeks, or if there's something that happens in that period of time, we're a phone call away. Mm-hmm. So I suppose that's the main thing, is just providing that support to people.
And I suppose this probably changes depending on the year and whatever, but are you crying out for volunteers? Do you have loads of volunteers? What's the situation there? Should we be encouraging people to sign up?
100%. Like, I mean, one thing, especially when it comes to the puppy fosterers, so you're kind of dedicated to about 6 months minimum. Some people do the full year before they come into advanced training. So it's different for everybody what they're able to commit. What I hear an awful lot is people who say, oh no, I couldn't do that because I couldn't give the dog back. Like, they'd fall in love. And I totally understand that. It's like, especially you've put in a lot of hard work, and you're after making this fantastic dog, and they are lovely and lovable, and they've been part of your life for a good period of time. But I think if people are able to overcome that and realize what they're giving a family is their freedom again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like our volunteers are constantly kept updated on how the dog is progressing, whether they're in advanced training or when they've been matched with their family and they're settling in. And we'd send pictures and videos, but also just to reinforce the fact that the benefits the family are after receiving, we could not do unless we had volunteers. So like Cork is, I suppose, one of the areas for us that we're always looking for people, Munster area in general, and also then in Dublin too. So like we always are, but there's lots of different types of volunteers. We have our breeding stock. So I talked to you about our breeding program. We have families that look after we call them brood bitches. They're our breeding females. They are homed in a family home, almost like a pet. They're very well trained still, but they are generally a pet. So they're homed there until they're pregnant and until they're ready to give birth. And then we have volunteers who look after the birthing process. We look after the puppies. Obviously our puppy raisers who take the puppies from 8 weeks. And then like in my role, I have families who look after my dogs in the evenings and at the weekends. It's like school. They drop them to me in the morning. I do my training for the day. They pick them up on their way home from work. And it's brilliant because for people who work full time, it's not always possible to own your own dog. So they get all the benefits of having a dog without the cost, free doggy daycare, me. And like we look after all, like none of our volunteers have any cost. We look after food, veterinary care, like all the equipment they're going to need, bedding, everything. So it's almost like a win-win for a lot of people,
Absolutely. And so there's a transition then from the 1-year-old base, or you said give or take because there's no exact timeline, but let's say it's the 1-year-old kind of, they then transition from a puppy raising volunteer family to a different class setting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it's always different.
When they're with their puppy raiser, they're there 24/7. They do have visits with staff members, but for the most part, like the puppy is fully ingrained in the home, whereas when they transition then after into their advanced training, like it's 5 days a week, 8-9 hours a day where the dog is with me doing their training. So it suits a lot of working people, I would say, because they want a dog, but what do they do with the dog during the day? So like I would start my day at about 8:15. I would be at headquarters. We're based in Little Island. The first volunteer will drop their dog. There's another dog I pick up on my way. I have 2 dogs living with me. And then we'd start our day at about 9 o'clock, like the proper training. And then when everyone's finished work, kind of 4:30, 5 o'clock, they all come and they pick up, and it's like picking the kids up from school. How did they get on today? Yeah, they did really well. We're progressing really well with this. The temporary boarders are great, and the puppy fosters are great as well, because they feed back information that's really important to us. Or like, they're toileting this many times a day. They're struggling with their jackets. So the working jackets, some of the puppies have body sensitivity. They'll feed back, oh no, the dog doesn't look comfortable, or oh, we went to this event and the dog didn't like the crowds. So they're feeding back information that we can then use when we're assessing the dogs, and we can work on it, and we can bring in the techniques that we need. So like they're essential to what we do. And we're always looking for more. There's never you would never have too many volunteers for what we're doing. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can imagine. It sounds very time intensive and definitely very much appreciated by the families in the end. And you mentioned a couple of times, so the red jackets, you even showed Misha wearing hers. When we see these dogs out and about, even if they're a dog at work or a puppy in training, how should we be reacting, and how should we be teaching our kids and families to react to these dogs?
I suppose the main thing would be, especially if they're a puppy in training, is just ignore them and just pretend they're not there. It's very hard because they're very cute. It's also, for a lot of people, when you see a dog in an environment that you're not expecting it, it's kind of hard. You're like, oh my God, there's a dog. Kids obviously don't understand that this isn't a regular pet dog. That's just, nature. Just telling, ignoring the dog as much as possible. A lot of the times people think as long as I don't touch it, it's okay. What I find a lot of people, as they walk past, they won't touch the dog, but they'll go, or, oh, look at you, beautiful doggy. That's just as bad as touching it, if not worse.
Of course. Distracting.
And also a lot of the time, even eye contact. People don't understand how important eye contact is when it comes to dog training. So I have a lot of people, they can't help themselves. They're staring at the dog, but one staring at a dog is threatening, even if you've got a big smile on your face. But also the dog's going, oh, I'm going to go over and say hello because they're looking at me they want me to come over and say hello. So it's best just to pretend the dog is not there. Just ignore them. If you can give the person space, it's not always possible. If you're in a queue for a shop or things like that, but give them a space because they might be working on something and trying and getting too close but mostly it's just pretend they're not there. Yeah. When the dog is fully trained, and I suppose because we're training these dogs for a specific purpose, they're going to be working with children. When I'm training the dogs now that are about a year old, if a child comes up and asks, as long as the dog is relaxed, I normally will say yes, because I want to see how the dog interacts with the child. I want the dog to learn not to become excitable if they're going to be approached. So it's totally dependent. If you're ever in doubt, just ask the person. That's it. Ask them, is it okay to greet your dog? And that person then has the choice to say, look, we're training, we're struggling, or another time, and not to be offended by that and go, yeah, that's fine, no bother, another time, and walk away. People get offended, but the problem is they do have an important job. And if you're taking, if the dog is attached to a child and you take the parents' focus away from what they're doing, you're actually putting the whole situation in danger. So just either ignore them completely, or if you can't help yourself, always ask.
Absolutely. I think it's brilliant advice. I think even as a society in general, we need to get past the fact of getting offended when people say no. When it comes to dogs, some of us have reactive dogs, some of us have dogs that just, they might be tired, not in the mood, etc. And then when it comes to a working dog, it's just a whole other situation, so much more gravity to it. So I appreciate you sharing that advice as well. And I suppose at certain stages along the process, not all dogs might make it to be an assistance dog as well. Are there ways we can help in, do these dogs come up for adoption then, or what's that situation? Are there ways that people might consider helping that way?
Yeah, I suppose I always compare it to, the way all our parents wanted us to be doctors or lawyers, and unfortunately, my dad would have loved me to be a doctor. I'm a dog trainer. I'm sure he's very proud of me, but at the same time, personalities, we've all got our strengths and we've all got our weaknesses. Dogs are exactly the same. They're not all going to make it to the standard, and that doesn't mean they're not a fantastic dog.
Yeah.
It could be behavioral. It could be a dog who's just particularly nervous around traffic. It could be a dog who's loud noises, and you'll find a family that have no problem with that. But what we need them for is to be able to let these families go wherever they want.
Exactly.
So it's a very high standard. It could also be health reasons. Our breeding program manager, like the tests on our breeding stock are like second to none. They have genome testing for any hereditary traits or health issues. They have a specialist eye. We have a specialist eye vet who tests their eyes to make sure there's nothing going on there. They have their elbow scored, their hip scored. And, you know, unfortunately, even if you can do all those health testing, there also sometimes can just be something that comes up and they're not suitable. What we do then is, if families aren't eligible for an assistance dog, so families of children who have a diagnosis of autism, there is an age range, because obviously older children are bigger, larger, stronger, and it wouldn't be fair to attach a dog to that child. Some of the children are just not a flight risk, so they do have autism and they have behavioural issues, but they don't particularly pose a danger to themselves. They go on what we call a buddy dog list.
Okay.
And then so they go onto that list. I think it's kind of another, it's fairly competitive because they are such well-trained dogs and they've, you know, had such fantastic upbringing that there is a list. So if a dog is deemed not suitable for whatever reason that may be, we call her our rehoming officer. So she will look at that list and she will kind of, again, similar to us matching assistance dogs, where will this dog and this family fit best? And again, they're provided, once the dog does enter the home, they're provided all the aftercare support so that set them up for success, basically.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No,
there is that list, yeah.
And it's brilliant as well to hear that, you know, there's still great opportunities for dogs to help people that really need the help, but just in a different way. And I suppose, so how can people help? Because like we've got a huge community that's going to be watching in here, either live or later on the recording. They love watching in. So one of the things we mentioned was taking in, you know, the puppies and helping raise the puppies. You mentioned even before that when you know that when the litter first comes, there may even be potential to volunteer. Then later, the kind of, let's say 1 year old, or the dog in training, is that what you kind of call the phase? Maybe that's an opportunity, and I suppose financially is also another area.
Yeah, I mean, like we are a charity and we don't get any government funding. We do apply for grants that are going to help us, but for the most part, we do for pretty much the whole operation. It's public funding. You know, people generously donating, you know, money towards what we're doing. You know, lots of people, they set up like we do. I know Ivan, who's fantastic. He does challenges every couple of months. I think we must have the fittest volunteers in Ireland, because they're always fitness ones, whether it's swimming or running or walking or push. Like I think he did one time and it was squatting, and I was like, you're not going to get people to do this. He did. So they're obviously extremely fit. So like there's always the opportunity to get involved in those. There's also the opportunity if you wanted to organise your own fundraiser. You know, lots of people, I do school visits a lot, and they do like red socks days for us. So they all wear red socks, or odd sock days, or pajama days, which I'd love to be able to wear my pajamas to work. Like, I mean, I don't get why I can't do that. So like you can arrange your own fundraiser. But like there's always, like, I suppose, just contact us if you did want to get involved. Like they talk you through anything you need to know. If you have an idea or you just want to get involved in something that's already set up, like we're always available. And then there's other people who just want to be hands-on. Like I think people don't value enough the time. Like, yeah, you can talk about money and it is important. Like unfortunately money makes the world go round. But like the time our volunteers put in, you know, like just for example, one of my dogs now is with a family in Cork, and they do pass the headquarters in Little Island every day. But coming off the dual carriageway, coming onto Little Island, it's taking at least 15 minutes, and the same on the way home. Like that's half an hour out of your day already that you've donated to me.
Yeah.
Then you take the dog home. And like anything, you could be dealing with diarrhea, you could be dealing with, barking, you could be dealing, and like, I can give them all the tools that they need, and I can keep up to date with how the progress is being made. But the time they put in is just as valuable. So I suppose it's just, if you're any bit interested, contact us. We'll give you all the information that you need. We'll come out and talk to you, and it brings a lot to people's lives. And like I said, people are upset giving the dogs back, but actually, when the dogs do go out and they see how amazing the dog is doing and how much the family is benefiting, it makes it all worthwhile.
Definitely. I can definitely see what a worthy cause it is. I haven't mentioned it yet in the talk, but I know my friend is going to be, or two of my friends will be watching in later. They were visiting us recently with their little girl that's on the spectrum, and we were speaking about anchoring and things like this with assistance dogs, and they were just saying, like, this would be amazing. Yeah. We were in the middle of Cork City, and the little girl was tearing to go in pedestrian zones and totally safe, and we made sure that everything was fine. But at the same time, it would have given them an awful lot of peace of mind to have extra set of eyes, let's say, on the child. So super important. The last question that I had for you was naming conventions. There's litters that come with special names. Is that true?
Yeah, there is. So traditionally, and most schools, my breeding manager is going to kill me when she watches this back, by the way. Most schools who train service dogs, whether they're guide dogs, dogs for the disabled, autism assistance dogs, especially if they have their own breeding program, what they normally do is they will start at the start of the alphabet. So if they have a litter, all the litter will have A names. So Amy, Alfie, Aggie, whichever. Then the next litter is the B litter. So Bear, I don't know, Biggles, there's been all sorts. Yeah. And so on and so forth down through the alphabet, which makes it very easy for us to know who is siblings. So, for example, 3 weeks ago, I got Apollo. So he's part of our space litter. And his sister's come into training now. Thankfully, they're both A's. Her name is Astra. She's come in yesterday. But we are now teaming our litters. So it makes it very hard for us, but very entertaining. And pretty pure, So like this, the last litter, oh God, I can't even remember what they were. This litter are the weather litter.
I was just going to say, I was just about to link this in. So, there's so many ways that everyone can help, but literally everyone watching in right now, the easiest and simplest thing to do with your thumbs once we've finished our chat is to head over to the Instagram page, because they're looking for names to do with weather. It can be whatever you want it to be, but they're looking for ideas, storm or cloudy or whatever it is, and come up with the best names and give them a like while you're there. The Instagram page is at Autism Dogs IRL. And of course, if you see the guys out and about, if you see someone fundraising, if you check out the website, you can find out ways to donate. If you have some time on your hands or expertise, because we've got loads, I've seen quite a few of them in the chat already, but loads of people that are
not hurricane, Kristen, not hurricane.
Not hurricane, no, we don't. We have loads of trainers involved that could potentially help out, or people that have time to do with providing homes for the puppies or for the dogs in training. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. I feel like we only scratched the surface, and I could talk to you for hours more. But I think it's enough to give people an idea of what goes on. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much as well, Ivan, for popping in to the chat. I've seen you popping loads of messages through. You're great.
Thank you so much for having us, Killian, and we'll always come back if you're ever looking for somebody.
Absolutely. We really appreciate it. So again, the Instagram is at Autism Dogs IRL. If you're not following us, we're at Ruby Reese Official. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.